Okay, pull your chair a little closer, lock the door behind you, and put your phone face down for the next 15 minutes. Because what just happened at the BET Awards is officially the loudest confession of a woman who just realized her whole empire is being held together by a rubber band and a prayer. Cardi B did not simply apologize. She did not simply walk something back. On a live stream, in a hoodie, with her voice cracking in 3 different octaves, she told the entire internet that God himself pulled up on her mid-flight and said chill. That is not a PR statement. That is Cardi B feeling the switch flip in real time. And baby, I have the receipts, I have the audio, I have the pattern, I have the timeline, and by the time we finish this deep dive, you're going to understand that the whole apology moment was not spontaneous. It was surgical, it was strategic, and in some ways, it was the most dangerous thing she has done to her own brand in 6 years. Now let me back all the way up, because a lot of y'all are just catching wind of this and you don't even know what you're supposed to be mad about. The same woman who has spent the last year telling the whole industry she is anointed, blessed, favored, unbothered, and untouchable, took the BET Awards stage and performed a record called Pretty and Petty. And listen, the record slaps. The record is a hit. The record is one of the strongest cuts on her whole rollout. But the record is also a diss. The record is a very specific, very pointed, very surgical diss aimed at a very specific woman. And in front of a national audience, she decided to turn that woman's photo, that woman's shape, and that woman's silhouette into stage production. She did not name her. She did not have to. Everybody in that room, everybody at home, and everybody on that little rectangle in your pocket knew exactly what was going on. And when the performance ended and the confetti dropped and the applause faded, that woman, the one who did not sign up for a national arena and did not sign up for a Bardigang pylon, became the #1 trending target on every timeline in the country. She walked off that stage a winner. She walked off that stage the girl who just delivered one of the most talked about BET performances in years. And then, roughly 48 hours later, she opened up an Instagram live from what looked like a hotel bathroom with the light hitting her wrong, and told her millions of followers that something inside her spirit was not okay. So the question we are going to answer today, and I promise I am going to answer it, is this. Was this a genuine conviction of conscience, or was this a conviction by the analytics? Because those are 2 very different apologies. And when we peel this thing back layer by layer, when we look at the timeline, when we look at the language she used, when we look at what she said, and, more importantly, what she absolutely refused to say, I think you are going to feel some kind of way. Buckle up. Here is the exact quote that broke the internet. Cardi B, on the live, says, and I am cleaning up the language for you. She says, guys, I have to tell y'all something. I really have to tell y'all something. Is it my spirit to say this? Is it my spirit to say this? For real. She keeps circling. She keeps reapproaching. She looks off camera 3 separate times. She takes a sip of something, and then she finally lets it out. She says, I want to thank everybody. The BET Awards was amazing, and I am going to keep performing Pretty and Petty because it is one of the hottest songs off my album. I love that song. It turns people up. Cool. That is the setup. That is the throat clear. That is her laying the runway before she tries to land the plane. And then she says the sentence that has the internet in a chokehold. She says, I know my fans is going to hate this, but please don't pick on that girl. Do you understand what just happened? Cardi B just publicly asked her own army to stand down. She just publicly acknowledged that the Bardigang has been mobilized, deployed, and is currently launching an aerial assault on an ordinary woman. The woman who has built an entire second career off her feuds, her clapbacks, her willingness to type in all caps at 3 in the morning, is now on camera saying, and I quote, I don't want to be the reason somebody gets on the internet and has a bad day. Y'all, this is not the version of her we know. This is a completely different animal. And when a celebrity of that magnitude, with that history, with that pattern, does a 180-degree pivot in front of God and everybody, that is not conscience. That is calculation. Or, at the very least, that is conscience arriving 12 hours too late. Now let me tell you why the timing matters, because this is where the story gets interesting, and this is where a lot of the smaller blogs are missing the plot entirely. The Bardigang did not just wake up on a Monday morning and decide to swarm a random woman. The Bardigang was activated by the performance itself. When you perform a diss record on a national stage with a visual reference to a real human being, you are lighting a match and dropping it on a field of dry grass. She knows this. She is not a rookie. She has been in this industry for 8, 9, 10 years. She has been in blogs since she was on reality TV. She knows exactly what her fan base does when she puts a target in the sky. So the apology, the pretty and packaged little apology from Cardi B, comes after the fire has already jumped 3 counties. That is like an arsonist calling 911 and saying, By the way, I heard there might be a fire around here somewhere. Come on now. But here is where I have to give Cardi B a sliver, and I mean a sliver, of credit. Because within that same live, Cardi B does something that most celebrities never do. She admits her own history. She says, and this is verbatim, "I really went through that before. I really went through that. In 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, when all the blogs was against me, when every single day was a bad viral tweet about me." Now pause. Pause right there. Cardi B is publicly identifying that she remembers what it felt like to wake up every morning as the villain of the internet. And in that moment, whether it was strategic or not, she is confessing that she knows exactly what she just did to that other girl. She just weaponized her own personal trauma into a bullhorn and aimed it at somebody who does not have the machine, the money, the lawyers, or the platform to fight back. And then she caught herself, or somebody in her ear caught it for her. Because let me tell you something a lot of y'all forget. She does not move alone. She has a team. She has a PR machine. She has an album out, has a tour to promote, has a business empire, has a brand called Grow Good. She just mentioned 3 separate times in that same live. So when a Cardi B pivot happens this hard, this fast, this publicly, it is not just because a rap star woke up feeling holy. It is because somebody in her camp did the math. And the math said this: if the Bardigang keeps dragging this woman, and this woman decides to go public, and this woman does an interview, and this woman cries on camera, Cardi B is no longer the girl performing a hit single. She is the girl who bullied a private citizen off the internet. And that is not a look she can afford right now. Not with the album still charting. Not with the endorsements pending. Not with the whole, reformed, matured, mother of 4 narrative that her team has been quietly building for the last 6 months. And that brings me to the brand. Because if you have watched me long enough, you know I always come back to the brand. The brand is the thing. The brand is the invisible skeleton holding up everything a celebrity does. And her brand, contrary to what the internet tells you, is not actually the loud girl on Twitter. The Cardi B brand her team is trying to sell you in 2026 is the underdog who survived. She is being repackaged as America's rags to riches story. Stripper to reality star to Grammy winner to businesswoman to mother of 4. That is the brand. That is the arc. That is the poster on the wall. And a poster like that cannot have a bloodstain on it. A poster like that cannot have a random woman crying in the background. A poster like that requires her to occasionally do the thing rich people never do, which is publicly walk something back. For Exhibit A, and this is where Cardi B differs from her peers, remember what Rihanna did during the whole listening party debacle. Rihanna, without saying a word, gave the entire internet a masterclass in how to protect a brand. She did not tweet. She did not comment. She simply stopped showing up. And the absence itself became the punishment. Our girl does not have that muscle. She does not have that stillness. She is a talker. She is a live streamer. She is a woman who will sit in a Bentley for 45 minutes explaining to you why she is not mad, while her nails tap the steering wheel in a rhythm that says she is very, very mad. So when she goes silent, that is a red flag. And when she goes loud but apologetic, that is a bigger red flag. Because the loud apologetic version only appears when the numbers scared somebody. Now, the wrinkle is this. And this is the part that is going to get me in the comments, because I know how y'all feel about this woman. The wrinkle is this. I do not fully believe the apology is aimed at the girl. I believe the apology is aimed at the algorithm. And I believe the apology is aimed at her own reflection. Because in that same live, she slips into this whole monologue about being anointed. She says, "I am a very blessed person. I really believe I was anointed. I was born anointed. And sometimes God tells me, all right, chill, Cardi, chill." Now, on the surface, that reads like humility. That reads like a woman getting spiritual. But if you listen to it 2 or 3 times, and I have, it also reads like a woman granting herself divine permission for everything she has ever done. Because if God only tells Cardi B to chill after the damage is done, then God is essentially a scheduling assistant. And that framework is essentially claiming that her aggression, her clapbacks, her pylons, her past target practice on other women, all of that was co-signed from above until, apparently, this particular Tuesday, when the memo came down that this specific fight was not on the docket. Do you see the problem? The problem is that she has framed her own apology in a way that gives her nothing to lose. If the internet forgives her, she is the anointed woman who heard God and obeyed. If the internet drags her, she is the anointed woman being persecuted for trying to do the right thing. It is a masterpiece of narrative engineering. It is a heads I win, tails you lose apology. And I am not saying she does not believe her own theology. I actually think she does. I think Cardi B genuinely believes she was chosen. But belief and strategy are not mutually exclusive. Sometimes the most sincere thing about a celebrity apology is that the celebrity has sincerely convinced herself the apology was necessary. And that is where she lives right now. In that gray zone. In that place where she is genuinely conflicted and also genuinely aware that being genuinely conflicted on camera is the best PR she could have paid for. Let me pull back and give you the historical context, because this is not the first time Cardi B has pulled the emergency brake mid-controversy. Go back and look at the 2018 stretch. Go back and look at the 2020 stretch. Every 18 to 24 months, she goes through a public reckoning where she cries on a live, invokes her humble beginnings, references her spiritual journey, thanks her fans for keeping her humble, and then pivots seamlessly into promoting whatever product, single, or tour is currently sitting on the launch pad. It is a cycle. It is documented. It is textbook. And each time, the Bardigang eats it up with a spoon, because the Bardigang loves nothing more than their girl crying. A woman crying is a woman who is human. A woman who is human is a woman worth defending. And a Bardigang worth defending is a Bardigang worth mobilizing. Which brings me to something I have been dying to say. Inside that same live, she made a request of her fans that flew right past most people. She said, and I am paraphrasing, next time she performs on TV, please calm her down instead of hyping her up. She said, and this is a direct quote, I could perform in front of Putin. I could perform in front of Obama. I could perform in front of Kim Jong-un. But when it comes to TV, when there is a camera on me, my mind does not rest. I get really nervous. She then confessed that she basically stops eating before television performances because she gets, quote, the runs. Now, that was a masterclass in vulnerability engineering. Because a woman who confesses she gets stage anxiety, a woman who confesses she cannot eat before a performance, a woman who confesses she avoids red carpets because her nerves cannot handle it, is a woman who cannot be a bully. She is a woman who is fragile. She is a woman who needs to be protected. She is a woman whose Bardigang should be gentle with, and by extension, whose critics should also be gentle with. It is the same play, in the same live, deployed twice. Cardi B is out here farming empathy while also asking to be excused from accountability. And it is, respectfully, magnificent to watch. The wrinkle inside the wrinkle is this. When she says she does not want to be the reason somebody gets on the internet and has a bad day, that sentence sounds noble. It reads noble. It plays noble. But if you look at the discography, if you look at the public feuds, if you look at the shoe-throwing history, that sentence is essentially an admission that the default operating system is exactly the thing she is now claiming to reject. She is not saying, I have never done this. She is saying, I am not going to do this today. That is not a rehabilitation. That is a temporary ceasefire. And ceasefires end. Ceasefires end the moment somebody pokes the bear the wrong way. And I promise you, somebody in the comments, somebody in a quote tweet, somebody with a burner account is going to poke her this week, and we are going to see whether the anointed version or the old school version shows up to answer. Now let me talk about that other girl for a second, because everybody keeps glossing over her, and it is starting to bother me. That woman did not ask for this. That woman did not sign a release form. That woman did not agree to be a music video prop, a Bardigang punching bag, or a national conversation piece. And whether it was intended or not, a portal was just opened on that woman's entire life. Every ex, every coworker, every relative, every high school classmate is now doing due diligence on that girl. Every blog is trying to get her contact information. Every podcast is fishing for an interview. Every troll is composing a threat. And the woman at the center of it, who by all accounts is a private citizen with no publicist, no legal team, and no security detail, is trying to figure out how she got here. Saying please don't pick on her is a nice sentiment. But the door has already been kicked in. You cannot unkick a door. You cannot unring a bell. You cannot unperform a diss record in front of the entire Culver City press pool. And in her heart, she has to know that. Which is why the apology, however sincere, is fundamentally too late. Hear me out, though. I am not claiming she is a monster. I am not calling her a bully in the traditional sense. She is a very human woman who has been given superhuman platform. She has millions of followers who move in lockstep with her every mood swing. That is not a normal life. That is not a life anybody was designed for. This is a person who tweets and thousands of people write it down. This is a person who breathes hard on a live and complex writes a headline. That is a very heavy crown. And I do think, in the deepest, most private part of Cardi B, she is starting to understand that the crown is starting to bruise her forehead. That is what I heard in that apology. Not fear of PR. Not fear of the algorithm. Fear of God. Because Cardi B said something in that live that a lot of people brushed past. She said, I am a big believer that God will punish you and your kids. Yo, that is not a talking point. That is not a soundbite. That is a woman who genuinely, biblically, generationally believes that stepping over a line will echo into her babies. And when a woman with 4 young children says that on camera, I do not read that as strategy. I read that as terror. Holy terror. The kind of terror that makes even the loudest women get quiet for a minute. So here's where I land. Cardi B did something rare. She walked something back before it destroyed her. She recognized a pattern in herself. She looked at her fans and told them, calm down. Please, this one is not for us. That is growth. That is real, tangible, publicly documented growth. And I want to acknowledge it, because when we constantly criticize celebrities and never celebrate their evolution, we contribute to the same cycle we complain about. But, growth without repair is just performance. And repair, in this case, would look like her reaching out to that woman privately. Repair would look like a public statement using the woman's actual name and dignifying her as a human being rather than referencing her as that girl. Repair would look like removing the visual reference from the live performance rotation. Repair would look like telling the Bardigang, by name, that they need to unfollow, block, and move on. None of that has happened. None of that is being reported to happen. So until any of that happens, what we have is not repair. What we have is a very well-produced conscience check, filmed vertically, with the ring light on the wrong side. Let me address the elephant in the room, because I know some of you are typing it right now. The Offset thing. Yes, the Offset thing lives in the background of every one of her stories now. She and Offset spent the better part of 5 years teaching this internet that the loudest way to prove you love your husband is to threaten anyone who looks at him too long. That is a template she built. That is a template she trained her fans in. So when she now says, please, do not pick on this woman, part of the Bardigang genuinely does not know how to interpret the instruction, because for years the instruction has been the opposite. And that is not really the Bardigang's fault. That is on her. You cannot spend a decade training an army in one direction and then, on a Tuesday, demand they pivot. It requires deprogramming. It requires modeling. It requires her, publicly and repeatedly, refusing to engage in the exact behavior she is asking them to stop. And then there is the Stefon of it all. Because the streets have been saying, and I keep hearing this from multiple angles, that this whole spiritual pivot right now is tied to a very specific personal chapter she is trying to write. She has been quietly repositioning herself as the woman who chose family over feud, who chose peace over pettiness, who chose God over gossip. That is a public transformation. That is a rebrand. And rebrands do not survive collateral damage. If the goal is to be seen as the reformed, matured, mother-first, God-first version of herself, she cannot afford a viral clip of a random woman crying and blaming her for it. So the apology is not just about that woman. The apology is about protecting the container she is trying to build to hold the next decade of her career. Purely on the facts, Cardi B has always been one of the most emotionally intelligent celebrities in music, but her emotional intelligence has historically been reactive rather than proactive. She feels things after she has done them. She regrets things after she has said them. She protects things after they have already cracked. And in a way, that is what makes her relatable. That is why her fans love her. That is why the Bardigang would run through a wall for her. Because she looks like the version of us that never had a filter. She looks like the friend who says the thing before the group chat can stop her. And we love her for that. But that same trait, at this level of fame, becomes a liability. And I think she is starting to understand that. You could hear it in her voice. You could hear it in the pauses. You could hear it in the way she kept looking off camera, as if somebody in the room was silently coaching her. The music, meanwhile, is undefeated. Let us not lose the plot on that. Pretty and Petty is a hit. The album is charting. The tour is selling. The merch is moving. The Grow Good line, which she mentioned again on that same live, is restocking in July with a bigger drop apparently coming in September. Cardi B is winning commercially. She is winning creatively. She is winning in every column that matters to a label executive. So the apology is not coming from a place of weakness. The apology is coming from a place of surplus. She can afford to be gracious right now because she is not fighting for survival. And that is important context, because it changes the read on the sincerity. When a woman with everything gives up a small piece of her own aggression, that is not weakness. That is stewardship. That is her recognizing that her cup is full and she does not need to poison anybody else's for it to overflow. And yet, in the very same breath as the apology, she told the internet, if she ever sees me, I know it is going to be on sight. Y'all caught that, right? In one sentence, Cardi B is saying, do not bully her, protect her, leave her alone. In the very next sentence, she is saying, but if I see her in public, we are throwing hands. That is not a full apology. That is a conditional apology. That is her saying, I have decided to spare you at scale, but if we ever meet at a gas station, all bets are off. And that whiplash, That jarring pivot from grace to combat readiness inside a single paragraph is the most her thing about the entire moment. It is the reason we love her. It is the reason we cannot look away. It is the reason her stream numbers do not dip. Because you never quite know which version of her is going to open her mouth next. And the internet, God help us, will never get tired of that particular guessing game. Let me tell you what I think is really about to happen. I think Cardi B is going to double back on the apology sometime in the next 30 days. Not the whole apology, just parts of it. She will keep the God parts. She will keep the growth parts. She will keep the mother parts. But she will quietly, strategically, drop back into her old bag whenever a rival tries her, whenever a blog posts a bad angle, whenever a comment section gets sideways. Because you cannot rewire this woman in one Instagram live. You cannot deprogram a Bardigang in one Instagram live. And the machine that produces her, the label, the management, the marketing, the streaming platforms, all of that machine benefits from her being loud. A quiet version is a less profitable version. And nobody in that boardroom is signing off on a less profitable star. So what does this mean for the woman at the center of the storm? Practically, it means her mentions will stay hot for another week or two, and then a bigger story will move her out of the news cycle. That is how the internet works. That is how the churn works. She will not get a public apology by name. She will not get a private meeting. She will not get flowers. She will get a slow fade. And if she is lucky, a small settlement conversation that never sees the light of day. If she is unlucky, she becomes a footnote. If she is smart, she monetizes the moment. If she is savvy, she stays silent and lets the internet fill in the blanks. Meanwhile, the song keeps getting performed. Because she literally said, on the live, and this is a direct paraphrase, I am not going to stop performing Pretty and Petty. It is one of my hottest songs. So the record stays. The visual might change. The framing might soften. But the song lives. And every time she performs it going forward, somewhere out there, a woman is going to feel her stomach drop. And in her heart of hearts, she knows that too. Now let me get to the part everybody keeps waiting for. What did she actually confess in that live? When you strip away all the hedges, all the please do not pick on her, all the I am not a bully unless I have to be, all the grow good tangents and the ice-chewing confessions about her raspy throat. What was the real confession? The real confession, in my opinion, is that Cardi B is scared of God. She has been on a spiritual arc for the last 2 years, and it is escalating. She is talking about anointing. She is talking about generational punishment. She is talking about being blessed. She is talking about being watched, not by fans, not by cameras, but by something above. And in that framework, every clapback, every fight, every viral moment starts to feel like a receipt that will be read back to her one day. That is a very heavy way to live. And a woman living that way, whether she is a rap star or a school teacher, is going to eventually pull back from the drama. Not for PR, for peace of mind, for the sake of her children, for the sake of what she believes is her soul. And I think what we saw on that live was Cardi B genuinely trying, in real time, to protect that. Which is why I am not going to be one of these commentators who reduces the whole moment to a cynical PR play. It is a PR play, yes, but it is also a genuine, messy, contradictory, human moment. She is contradicting herself in real time because she is a person, not a marketing plan. She is asking her fans to stand down while also promising to fight the woman if she sees her. She is saying she is anointed while also acknowledging she needs to chill. She is apologizing while also continuing to perform the song. All of that can coexist. All of that is what being a public person in 2026 actually looks like. There is no clean apology anymore. There is only the messy, half-lit, ring light on the wrong side version of accountability. And for better or worse, she just modeled it for millions of women who are watching her every move. When the smoke clears, here is what will be true. Cardi B will still be a superstar. She will still sell out arenas. She will still headline the festivals. She will still trend at least once a week for something. That woman, the anonymous one, will slowly disappear from the discourse. The Bardigang will find a new target within a fortnight, because that is what fandoms do when they are not disciplined by their leader. And sometime around the September Grow Good restock, she will find herself in a new controversy, and we will all be right back here having a similar conversation, and I will have another video pinned to the top of your feed, and we will do the dance again. That is not cynicism. That is just the shape of celebrity in this era. And if you understand the shape, you can stop being surprised by it. She told us who she is on that live. She told us she is nervous on television. She told us she is anointed but occasionally overzealous. She told us she is generous but combat ready. She told us she believes in God, in family, in her seeds. She told us she is going out tonight, is getting drunk, and is petitioning for LA clubs to close at 3 in the morning instead of 2. That is a full human being. That is not a soundbite. That is a whole woman in 15 minutes. And if the only takeaway you have from that live is that she apologized, you missed the entire movie. She did way more than apologize. She invited us into the moral operating system of her entire career, and then, in the middle of the invitation, remembered she had a grow good restock to plug. And that, right there, is the collision of art, commerce, conscience, and clout that defines her whole moment in music history. Now can we talk about the moment inside the moment? Because a lot of you missed it. There is a beat in the live where Cardi B almost slips and says something she cannot walk back. She goes, "I am one of those people that is out you, and then I feel bad that I killed you and buried you. And then I dig you back up and I say, my bad that I killed you like that. My bad that I took you away from your family. I did not really mean that." Freeze on that. Because that is not an apology. That is a self-diagnosis. That is a woman describing a compulsion. That is a woman saying, out loud, on tape, that she has a repeating cycle where she destroys and then feels remorse and then destroys again. Psychologists have a very specific word for that pattern. It rhymes with sabotage. And when you hear a superstar identify her own loop like that, you are watching something rare. You are watching a public figure hand you her own case file, and then, in the very next breath, pivot to a plug about lash serum. Only in this era of media. Only from this specific woman. And let me be honest about one more thing, because if I do not say it, the comments will. The Bardigang deserves some of the pressure too. Fandoms in 2026 are not just fan clubs. Fandoms are private armies. They are group chats with battle plans. They are Twitter squadrons that quote tweet on command. And every time one of them piles onto an anonymous woman with 3,000 replies calling her every name in the book, they are not defending anybody. They are performing loyalty. They are auditioning for a like from the mothership. And it is time we, as a culture, admit that half of stan behavior is not devotion. It is theater. It is a group of strangers using a celebrity as an excuse to be cruel with a receipt in hand. And the celebrities who benefit from that army, at some point, have a moral obligation to dismantle the parts of it that draw blood. That is what a fully evolved apology would have looked like. Not, please do not pick on her. But if I see one more comment from any of you attacking her, you are unfollowed, blocked, and I will name you by handle. That is the version we needed. That is the version we did not get. Not yet, anyway. Let us also talk about the grow good pivot, because I keep laughing about it. In the middle of a spiritual confession, in the middle of admitting she may have hurt a stranger, in the middle of quoting scripture at herself, Cardi B looks off camera and asks her friend when the next big restock is. And her friend goes, "I don't know, I thought July 3rd. And she goes, no, July 3rd is not the big one. The big one is September. Y'all, this is a woman who can toggle between, I am scared of God, and we are restocking on the 3rd, without needing so much as a commercial break. That is not a flaw. That is a skill. That is the exact skill that makes her a billionaire in the making. Because most people cannot hold contradiction. Most people, when they are being spiritual, cannot also sell you a lip gloss. And most people, when they are selling you a lip gloss, cannot also make you cry about their childhood. She can do both in the same 60 seconds. And whether you find that cynical or fascinating probably depends on how many entrepreneurs you have watched build empires out of raw personality. This is what late-stage celebrity capitalism actually looks like when the star herself is the CEO. It is not neat. It is not consistent. It is not always pretty. But it is very, very effective. So here is my final take, and then I am letting y'all go to the comments to fight about it. Cardi B is not a villain. She is not a saint. She is not fully apologizing. She is not fully unrepentant. She is somewhere in the middle, which is the most dangerous and the most interesting place a celebrity can be, because that is the place where the audience gets to project their own morality onto the star. Y'all are going to write the ending of this arc, not her. If y'all decide she is redeemed, she is redeemed. If y'all decide she owes the woman more, then the pressure will build, and eventually she will do more. That is how it works. That is how it has always worked. Celebrities do not lead the culture. Celebrities negotiate with the culture. And the culture, for better or worse, is the boss in the room right now. So when you drop your comments below, remember that. Your take is not just an opinion. Your take, multiplied by millions, is the next chapter of her career. Move accordingly. One last thing, and then I promise I am wrapping this up. If you go back and watch the live from the top, watch for the moment she says, and this is close to a direct quote, "I do not want to overdo it, because when you overdo it, then God does not bless you." Freeze that frame. Sit with that sentence. Because that, more than the apology, more than the grow good plug, more than the raspy throat confession, is the real her in 2026. That is Cardi B auditing her own spiritual balance sheet on a live stream. That is a woman doing the math on her own soul in front of a couple 100,000 strangers. And whether you find that heroic or terrifying probably depends on how you feel about her to begin with. But you cannot deny that Cardi B on this live was unusual. You cannot deny that it is honest, or at least trying to be. And you cannot deny that it is the most fascinating public confession any megastar has offered up in a long, long time. We came here to talk about a BET Awards apology. We ended up talking about God, generational punishment, anointing, PR strategy, Bardigang deprogramming, offset residue, Stefon speculation, brand architecture, and the invisible woman at the center of a viral hurricane. Because that is what a moment like this actually is. It is never one story. It is 9 stories layered on top of each other. And if you only listen to the top layer, you miss the whole song. So the next time Cardi B says something short on a live, remember, there is always a longer sentence underneath it. And your job, as a viewer, as a citizen, as a fan, or as a critic, is to keep digging until you hit the real one. Because the real one is always in there. She is a lot of things. Concise is not one of them. And thank God for that, because if she was, we would not have this much to talk about. Alright, y'all, that is where I am leaving it for tonight. Drop your verdict in the comments. Team Grace or Team Get Her Together? Team The Apology Counted or Team She Owes Way More? Team God is really talking to Cardi B or Team The Label is really talking to Cardi B? Season your take with a little humility, because none of us are anointed enough to pretend we know the whole story. But do not be shy either, because the whole point of a live stream, a comment section, a podcast, a group chat, is that we all get to be tiny little theologians of celebrity for a few minutes a day. And she just handed us the biggest sermon of the season. I will see y'all in the next one. Same time, same channel, same nosy energy. Peace, love, and please, for the love of God, drink some water before you type. Talk soon.